We're talking about the making of an entrepreneurial university to reposition the Rivers State University for excellence, creativity and innovation, yields, discoveries, and commercial potential. And this is what is done all over the world, maybe apart from our region. And there is an association called Association of University Technology Managers, AUTM. The challenge for us is, how do we train technology managers, technology transfer professionals in our universities to help us handle this process? This big man, Job Nicholson, very prominent person in business, defined research and innovation this way. He said research is a transformation of money into knowledge. Now, where do you get the money for research? That is important. Most of us, our students, the parents of our students, sponsors, pay for research. Out there, the money for research in most cases comes from grant-making agencies. So as we talked about yesterday, there are a whole lot of grants out there, but we need to know how to access the grants. Every research solves a problem. And once you solve a problem for somebody, he needs that solution and he will be ready to pay for that solution. So it's important we come beyond just teaching and research. Community service we talk about comes from the vision of the university. Just scholars are teaching people, so it was just teaching and learning. After a while, people felt that to enrich teaching, you need to conduct research. So research became the second mission of higher education. Our business is going to teach, not to conduct research. So why are you forcing us to conduct research? It was a major revolution in higher education. That is the first revolution. Now, so gradually some universities accepted research. And 70% of global ranking indicators come from research. So if you are not there, you are not there. There is no way you rank. And then the foundation for innovation also comes from research. Then it is accepted as being self-evident. So this is the way the university mission has evolved. Next slide. So when you look at it, from teaching, we build human capital. From research, we come with new discoveries of knowledge. Then from innovation, people now have patents, products of research, and so on that we can take to the knowledge market. Then from entrepreneurship, licenses, startups, spin-offs, products to market, royalties. So invariably, you're also going to make a lot of money if you follow the value chain. So to take an idea, knowledge to the market requires a lot of effort. So it requires proper entrepreneurial education, mentorship and business incubation. So entrepreneurial university is a research-intensive university, research-intensive, committed to creativity, innovation, commercialization and entrepreneurship. And the founder of Triple Helix says this: you need to have the right people. And the truth of the matter is that in the university, every professor should have a team, or 2-3 professors can come together, form a team. You are lucky. The commitment is from council here. In Uniport, it was the other way around. We were struggling for council to appreciate, and then council accepted, then within us we were fighting. Will you go, this man, will you go on strike? He will be in his laboratory working with his students. So this is the situation. You have papers, publication, and so on. So takeaways. We need to do a couple of things to establish this in this university. Next slide. We need to agree on following the strategic line, timelines for certain things to ensure that this is properly established. Even people were talking about making somebody a professor. What is a professor and not? This is not what we talk about. We should be talking about experts in residence, entrepreneurs in residence, founders in residence to mentor. And then, so our students from the individual projects, team projects, will end up with startups as our alumni.
What exactly are we doing? What exactly is the import of some of these things, this effort we are putting in? I mean, we wake up, we go to the office, we do our teaching, we do our research. I mean, it's like getting like a cycle, and that is why I'm really happy about this kind of session, where we can actually talk to ourselves and show best practices, and hopefully take a leaf from here and there and see how we optimize our operations. In global higher education today, rankings are not optional in the sense that whether you embrace it or not, universities are leveraging it to drive significant value for themselves and their institutional brands. Normally, you look at various aspects of the university life, university management, and you say, okay, we are an institution, and then most of the conversations look at universities from the point of view of an organization, which is correct. A university is primarily an organization, and there are several elements that actually underpin a university as an organization. When they mention the name of your university, what's the first thing that comes to mind? What do people think about you? In fact, how many people even know the name of your university and what you stand for? So basically, rankings are one of the ways where you can start treating the university like a brand, being concerned about putting this brand before the world, letting the world see this is who we are, this is what we stand for, this is what we have done, and this is why we have comparative advantage over others, basically. So, as a brand, the university needs to start asking two major questions. How many people know about us? Number one, which is your visibility. And even if they know about us, what do they know about us? What do they know us for? Which is your reputation. So, visibility and reputation are two things that the university needs to start looking at from a strategic point of view. And so, basically, when we start thinking about River State University, that name needs to start meaning something to people out there. The universities that actually attract these resources are the ones that have invested over time in their reputation. They have shown value, and they have continued to show themselves as value drivers in the society. And so it's important for us to know that if we're looking to attract the best students, the best staff, the best research partners, looking to attract profitable partnerships, to position the university for that attraction, there needs to be a focus on making RSU a value brand, a brand that actually communicates value. The first is the World Universities Ranking, and the second is the SDG Impact Ranking. The World Universities Ranking is positioned for research-intensive universities. Research-intensive universities because we know that development in the world actually is underpinned by research. Over time, most of the societal advancement have been underpinned by research. And so we know that universities are a major contributor to the development of their societies. When a university applies to actually get ranked on the World Universities Ranking, we get data. We analyze a university based on three major sources of data. First is the performance data, which is the data the university submits to us. It doesn't matter how good you do as a university, if you are not able to bring it to bring that information, and put it out there, definitely it is what we see that we will rank you on. Audits to actually identify your areas of strength is quite important. For about roughly 38-39% of your World Universities Ranking performance. And so RSU can be participating pending when you get to that threshold. You can be appearing as a reporter institution. However, the SDG Impact Ranking is your major platform that should be focused on now. To actually look at various activities of the university outside of teaching and research, where you actually drive impact as a university. We will start listing some of them that might actually, you might consider mundane activities in order to get ranked. Any other 3 plus number 17. So you participated in SDG 3, health, SDG 4, education, and SDG 16, peace and justice, and then SDG 17. Now, here's the thing. The SDGs you choose need to be aligned with your areas of strength, like I've been mentioning. I was speaking to a particular university, and basically, before I started, they did an intro of the university to say, listen, we are really great in health. As the various units of the university sent to the central person who will then filter to determine what goes on and what doesn't go on. An active data tracking mechanism. Finally, I have a set of just 4-point recommendations, which I believe I'll just send as a document to the university representative. But thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We will continue to see how we can actually support your university with the information you need in order to at least have a fighting chance for now, and hopefully in the near future drive visibility and reputation for your university. Thank you.
You have to look at the system. But the point basically is that if this institution gets 40 billion naira to 60 billion naira every year, will it make a difference, sir? It will make a tremendous difference. Is it not so? And your funding problems, who deal with solve it? The heroes you project in the community will determine your future. So if I go into any place, I look at the toilets, I look at the people who are the stars, who are projected as stars, not the real stars. When I see them, I will either write them off or I will clap for them. So the individuals you put as your heroes, who you appoint, who you put in positions, will determine what you are. Because if you don't have leadership, an institution goes berserk. So that's why you having a pro-chancellor who is a learned person, a senior advocate of Nigeria, is a very great reward. I want you to use this opportunity to make a difference. And having a vice chancellor who is forward-looking. So the vision is not what you put in the website. It is how you actually behave. So money is not the first business. It's not the first thing. There is a lot of money. In fact, as I'm talking to you, I'm seeing a lot of money here. Then also, it is not true that universities are underfunded. It is true that universities are not thinking with clarity. And I think that's what Professor Ajenka, he didn't say it like this, but that's what that it is possible to get really funding. We change ourselves from Center for External Studies to Distance Learning Center. So we rebrand. We rebranded. Now rebranding is not enough. You have to reform. Regulatory reforms, and then Senate creates a center. We change our vision. Then we develop program expansion. Then of course we develop a consultative stakeholders forum. We had a brainstorming document. We had a brainstorming retreat, and then we developed an action plan, which we call the REC mode. Which university will print 774 course materials. Nobody. So we went into arrangement with printers in Ibadan and Lagos, and we did a printer financing framework. They finance the project. We sell the materials to our students. They collect the cost. Then we share the profit. It worked very well within 2 years. Or when they came to our warehouse, we were shocked. The same way, NUC said we have to go into CBTs. So you can see our populations increase. Then we enhance the brand enhancement and community service. Now what we are doing also is that students from the main university, we are also now doing IT with us in distance learning. They were doing what we call it sideways. So there was a lot of movement into distance learning to support with different services. And you see, we have a distance learning center, program in management, and that you are going to give scholarship to every master student that is qualified in management studies, but that they are going to be mentored in the distance learning program on how to teach and engage in this thing, and but that they will be getting X amount every month to support them. you will get the best postgraduate students in Nigeria. So what you simply do is that in doing your school fees for distance learning, you already calculated the cost of that program into the fees. So the distance learning center knows that that part is not their own money. You have to entrench quality culture. You have to do brand differentiation in a cluttered market. You have to change stakeholders' perception. You have to performance benchmarking. All these things are coming back again. Prof, you raise this KPI and so on and so forth. Then establishing integrity footprint. Sir, if you have people who have no integrity but are very brilliant, they are just brilliant crooks. If you have a brilliant crook, it's worse to a system than having a mumu in the system. So integrity footprints must be established. Then expanded income streams and prudential financial management, and then new reward and profit sharing system with stakeholders. I can tell you this last one, because I'm also a lecturer. If this last one doesn't work, people will just say yes sir, yes sir, yes sir, and they will be dodging you. That is not well spaced, they fail. If it's not well paced, it may fail. If you don't face it very well, it can fail. If the language is not properly phrased, it can fail. And then if people are not supported, they are not braced, it can also fail. It is when you have done that, you can brace the program, you can ace it, and then you can ease people's fears. So change management is very critical. So when you are doing your policy, don't go and borrow Ibadan policy. What will work in Ibadan will not work in Rivers. You go to school to destroy the innovator and misdirect the original thinker, then spend years trying to restore him through workshops and seminars. Last, the young people say last, education has scam. That's what it's saying. So we have to reverse that. And why? Over centralization. It stifles initiatives. It stifles innovation and adaptation. NUC is guilty. Negative effects of legacy thinking. Legacy thinking is good though, but it's as bad as cargo cult mentality. Knowing how things, but you never know why people are doing it.
The importance of what we've had today is how to move us from, change our mindsets, take us from research, publication to products. Commercialization, and Professor Jenka rightly said the PG school is the hub for research. So how are you going to turn those hundreds of PhD students we churn out? How are we going to transform our RSU through them?
This is where knowledge is transformed into products and then to commercialization and all that. And he should talk on what he rightly called the triple helix model, which has also evolved to what they call quadruple helix, and then further down to what is called the quintuplex helix. There is great benefits in the collaboration between the university, the academia, and industry, so to say. I know that the university has established a committee on repository, but after listening to Professor Jenka, and the gentleman who talked on the ranking, I'm beginning to rethink that philosophy, because if we now put our thesis into repositories, they become, the public gains access to them even before they become patented. At some point in the postgraduate college, we set up a committee to look at this thesis and identify those that have commercial value in them, so that the university can commence a process of patenting those that have this commercial prospect. We need to recognize these partners. We shouldn't pay lip service to them. We need to recognize them. Invite them to many of our important occasions, to convocations, to inaugural lectures. In fact, I think that an inaugural lecturer should have the additional responsibility of nominating maybe 10 or 15 industries that are relevant in his field, as to attend these inaugural lectures. A little more smoother and more beneficial to the university. Thank you.
All right, talking about ranking, and even the cut across the other two presentations we made, everything is just converge to digital literacy. So I use digital literacy to summarize how can improve our ranking and also help the university. And also then, in addition to that, is the issue of integrity, sincerity. We must be open. All right, talking about digital literacy, I can tell you for free that most of our colleagues, most of our lecturers, they are still dwelling on the analog sphere. Most of them. Okay, for example, most lecturers, even including heads of department, cannot even fill an online form. Digital literacy help in hybrid mode of learning, combining the physical and the what we have just talked about. If you are not computer literate, how can you manage it? Also, it also help better student output. Of course, if you are all digital literate and implement this ODL, and also it will help us to produce a better student output. And of course, we increase the institutional reputation and visibility, and above all, operational efficiency. By the university will be managed. Well, just to summarize, lecturers improve their digital literacy. I think this program we just started this neg enrollment, because there's an expression that all teaching staff must be enrolled with Nigeria Education Reposition and database portal, where all these products will be digitized and uploaded. And as work is being cited in future, you as a student get paid, your students also get paid, even the university also get paid. So through that and other means, by inculcating a good digital literacy, which of course we have started, and we are improving on it, it will help the university ranking and visibility. Thank you.
Better ranking. The first thing we need to do is not to leave it to the DAP, or even if we want to leave it to the DAP, then he must get a support directly from the Vice Chancellor that is beyond the regular support he will normally get. It is very important. I'm not saying I do not get support from the VC. He has been here for over a year, and I have worked intensively with him in areas of accreditation, and even this ranking we are talking about. We should archive it online. Every activity, for instance, every month we do a workout in the university. We should archive it. We have a relationship with our immediate community where we have even gone about furnishing an ICT center for them, doing all sorts of things. We should archive it. It should be in such a way. And when I say archiving, it doesn't mean that we'll have to go to ICT and increase their bandwidth. No. Look, if the PR department can promote it, so say in Instagram, in LinkedIn, in Facebook, that is enough. So all I need to do when I am ranking Rivers State University is to, if I don't know where it is already, is to go to the Public Relations or Corporate Affairs Division of the university and say, please, look, this activity that once took place here, I want the link for it. I'm sure you must have posted it when it happened. They will give it to me, I'll copy and paste it. And our brother here, Victor, will see it and give us full score. A central ranking committee in the university, it is very important. We need to create a repository. That repository is that every person who publishes anything, including those our small local journals that are not indexed in big platforms like Scopus, we should put all of them in that repository, so that, because it is not every ranking system that uses Scopus and Elsevier to set the web. Many of them use just Google Scholar. And once that our repository is linked to Google Scholar, there are certain ranking schemes that we can go into that will make us very visible.
Started a few years back, but and that was in 2019. The first director was appointed, but until my appointment last year, nothing concrete has taken place in the Center for Open and Distance Learning. Governing board. The board, we have just appointed the chairman and members of the board, the governing board of the CODL. A training, an in-house training has been approved for us to take effect from the 20th of this month, and we're preparing for that to train lecturers in the Department of Business Education and staff in the Center for ODL. From the report, I made some recommendations, and the management committee decided to assign responsibilities to members of the management committee to assist in taking care of those recommendations. And part of those recommendations that they are already coming to light, because we have already fulfilled that of the governing board. Training is already about to take place, but one very serious matter, pending issue, is the standalone building, the health services department. Talking about support services, especially to do with counseling services. We know we can collaborate with the
Career Center,
with the director, guidance and counseling, and get something there. So we are working on that. Very crucial and very crucial, and I must maintain here and mention, because I have applied and we are waiting on that. The university needs to look at it and give us a stand-alone building. We have one, but while we are thinking we have one, it's just a theater hall, a 300-seater hall kickstart. Thank you very much.
We are not just starting. We came into being since 1990. And we have done tremendously very well over the years until the program was stopped. The program restarted in 2015. And because of the 5 years snag, after 2011, no admission until 2015. So when we restarted, it took time before we started getting the numbers. But now we are back in the numbers. Initially we started with 200, 350, but last year we had about 1,160. This present year one, because the Vice Chancellor is determined to let all programs end so that lecturers can go on leave for at least 2 months. So because of that, there was no third extension for admission. So we had about 850 thereabout. That students were not paying fees. The Senate decided that if any student doesn't pay fees and you're clear standing in coursework, you will not graduate, meaning Senate will not approve your result until you clear the fees. But we're thinking at a time that continuously allowing that to overlap will throw the university into finance difficulties. So Senate, no fees, no exam. So that will translate into better financial performance. We're cooperating with ODL. We are ready. When they work out their modalities and they want to partner with us, the university gives approval.
Let me just use the opportunity to make a very, very quick point. As we all know, much of the bibliometric ranking rests on the work done in PG school. Much of the research done in the university, I would say more than 70%, comes from the work of PG school, from postgraduate students and those involved with their supervision. We recognize that as part of the university's policy, and as it is in the case in several other universities, postgraduate students are expected to publish some papers. For the master's degree students, they are required to publish one. The doctoral students publish 2. Our experience is that it is very difficult to find these publications in Scopus indexed journals. very difficult, and if we insist on that, there will be nobody to graduate during cohort. There will be no postgraduate students to graduate. So I have used my wisdom to manage the situation to say, look, if you present an index journal and I check it out, it has good visibility, I accept it. Okay, moving forward. And in addition, what we have done, it's at the board level, we have resolved. I invited a consultant who had helped me as an editor-in-chief to move a journal from a mere secular journal to a Scopus index level. And 2 months after we achieved that, that indexing status, we received the funding. In fact, TED Fund and PTD took over the journal. And I think it's something that will be beneficial too for us. What had happened in the past is that every faculty has its own journal. And they go there, they produce these articles overnight and get them published and then come for the external defense. This is what has been going on since the foundation of the university, unfortunately. These journals, some of these journals are not even known by members of the faculty. So what we have done is to invite this consultant who have helped me, to assist the faculties. So the index by Scopus requires a number of requirements, which will require some fund. First, it has to upload all of the articles. It has to scan and upload them, on the website. And there are certain other additional requirements that such journals have to meet. And he needed that resource to be able to do it. I think that if we're able to achieve that, if we're able to index our journals, it will help greatly.
Thank you. And borrow the maxim of Emeritus Professor Jenka. For every research, ask what is new. What is new? What is it that we want to look at now? What problem do we want to solve? What is new? Once that question is asked, the type of research that can be commercialized will begin to emerge.
Speaking with one of the officers, I mentioned that a retreat to me is a family meeting where we look at ourselves and tell ourselves the truth of how to go. And looking at the theme of the retreat, I was very excited that I was invited. And the topic I was asked to share my thoughts on is something that a couple of years ago I was invited to come midwife that system in the States. Somehow, I don't know if the benefits of the system is there. Repositioning the school, repositioning the university for the purposes for which it was established. The motto is excellence and creativity. The university governance provides another structure that should actually aid anything being done in the university system to be effective in achieving the desired result. Often we have projects started, abandoned, and then you hear things like, oh, it was because of funding. The application of those limited resources will involve choices. Why do we need this project? Why should we undertake this project? To do central purchases, what will be the benefits? But these are things that thinking will do beyond money, because you can get to a department that will tell you there is no paper. They'll tell you no paper. Now, no paper cannot be an excuse for a university. The reason is that this is a community of scholars, of thinkers. So if we think, we will be able to come up with solutions, creative solutions. How much paper does a department need in a semester? And you plan for it. So in the assessment will lead us to how do we deal with it, how do we meet that need. And so in meeting the need, we'll have a plan. The plan will include investigating sources. That's a market where we can source the item. If it's a building construction, before we talk about the Eastern Learning Institute was talking about a standalone building. Why do you need a standalone building? Those are the kind of questions that management should ask even before it gets to council. Why do you need it? Oh, because NUC said so. So the structure without having purpose will not be effective project implementation. You've put the structure. Another dimension which we also look at now is after you put the physical structure, how about the maintenance? Because you see, it's one thing to build, as many of us can attest throughout this country. Building is one of the easiest things to do. They will be charged with the responsibility of assessing the needs, recurring things, paper for operations, journals for the library because they need to buy their journals or all reports. Now, when they finish, they will move into the dean. It's the dean that will now prepare and take to the vice chancellor before it gets to the approving authority, which is the council, which serves as the tenders board of the university. Because you see, as a point, I know that generally the university has a committee system where there's a finance and general purpose committee, which is almost the omnibus committee that helps the council discharge its responsibility with respect to overseeing management. Why? Because if you have planned, you know that this project is going to be 30 months and the milestones will be 3 months, 6 months, 9 months for payment. As long as those milestones are met, it is the responsibility of the financial team to resource it, because from the budget that's available, you don't spend the money and say the money is fungible. No, you begin to dedicate, set aside money for the purposes of meeting those obligations that will mature at a set time. Learning will have a team in-house that will be the project team. They will ensure that the technical, that is the technical dimensions of the project are being met, as well as the financial obligation. And that project team will report to the director of the center. The director will report to the vice chancellor. The vice chancellor will report to council. Because part of the reporting that the bureau will do, because the bureau will also come. Once they certify a project, it becomes a license for them to come and monitor the project execution, because it's a project execution monitoring is one big problem in project implementation if you want to achieve the desired result.
Thank you.
But it's good to know there's a legal framework, there's all this to follow, so the human angle. But back to the university, because that is also a problem there. Yes, you're director of legal services. You've heard about this legal framework that's been shared with us about project implementation.
It is upon the legal framework that the success of this entire activity rests upon. Because finally, plan, repositioning, initiative must be underpinned by regulations, by laws. And when I take a quick look at our history, it's important for us to understand the core goal mandate of the River State University of Science and Technology as it was envisioned. Now, there are 3 important speeches which is not before us, which we must look at later. First, the speech of the first visitor of the university, Chief Melville Okilo, which encapsulated the vision for the university. Second is the speech of the first Vice Chancellor, Dr. Titi Ison, which anchored that this university is here to solve problems of Niger Delta, Nigeria, and the whole world. And finally, the first Pro-Chancellor and Governing Council, Professor Tekena Tamino's speech. Now, if you look at those 3 speeches, which I call the tripod of the university, they align squarely with the vision that is being reenacted. Then I just go over to 4 issues. First, as I mentioned, for us to succeed, not just project implementation, there must be an appropriate legal framework. When there's a legal framework, we must go back quickly to see how do we comply with the legal framework. Frankly mentioned Rivers State Procurement Law. We also have the Procurement Act. We have also ancillary regulation and frameworks that touches on procurement. In fact, I'm unhappy that the EFCC people did not come today. When you have problem, they invite you. They bring your university law, they bring the Procurement Act, they even bring our university financial regulation and put before you and say, tell us, show us how you've complied with these stages. And the point I'm making is that there are sufficient provisions in extant laws at the national level, which the university must comply to. Then, the third aspect is the international treaties. Let's take issue of procurement. The law is there. Now we have a procurement director. Maybe to be brought to the attention of the Vice Chancellor or the Pro Chancellor. When there is no such directorate of procurement before now, it means it's a free for all, because the issue of planning, post-planning, planning, execution, and post-execution may not be complied with. That was the problem. And if you look at the functions of the legal director, which is about nine of them, we are supposed to act as a conscience of the university, ensuring due compliance. To fearlessly, without favor, insist that the law should be followed. Let me just add one. If you look at our appointment data today, they are moribund. They are. Because they were drafted first in 1980. It's that same pattern of letter we are using. Admission letter for PG students, they are moribund. Otherwise, in your admission letter, students were aware that when you use the university resource and you create a product, the ownership does not lie with you. Finally, Rachel is aware that because of lack of capacity, you want a file on a student or on a staff to execute a matter, you'll be shocked you can never find that file. A staff in the university you want to, is in court with us, you want his file to trail certain things, you cannot find it. And at the end of the day, you cannot give effective defense. Instructions are given at university, do this at this point in time. It just taken for granted.
It is possible. The development plan, we talk about the billions. Even though we have all the money today and the right thing is not being done, we will not have value for money. And so procurement is important. Now, will procurement manifest itself in the area of inflation of cost, contract cost? Lack of procurement plan that the resource person talks about. Again, poor project prioritization. He also talked about it. We also talk about budgeting processes. Of course, you can't talk about procurement plan if you don't have budget. You talk about emergency when you are dealing with situations that are not under your control. But not when somebody fails to do what he or she is supposed to do. Because you are dealing with consumables that he made reference to. Of course, you should know that if I have about 3 or 4 cartons of a particular paper today, you must estimate when it is likely going to finish, and you make preparation towards it. Not when it finishes, you start calling parts of procurement. Number 1, we talk about economy. Number 2, we talk about efficiency. Number 3, we talk about fairness. Number 4, we talk about reliability. Number 5, we talk about accountability and what we call an ethical standard. If you must have value for money, there's no time for me to explain all this.
Yeah,
These are characteristics of sound procurement.
What I think, ideally, first, the processes involved in awarding contracts, which our lecturer delivered following the procurement processes, ensuring that the contractor has all it takes to be able to deliver on the project. And in doing that, we must understand that every project is unique. Every project has a lifespan. Every project has a budget. You must plan in line with this. And then before a contractor is awarded a contract, the contractor should be able to provide some elements. And one of the elements that you must look at is the work breakdown structure for you to be able to achieve the work. Knowing fully well that if your work breakdown structure is not properly planned, in line with the processes which our lecturer has said, you cannot even track your finances, the inflow, your resources. That has created a lot of problem in most of our projects. I have practiced in the UK, and I see how structures, how projects are managed in the UK, how they are designed. You know, most of their projects or buildings in the universities are designed in such a way that they can serve different purposes. So you need to look at functionality, serviceability, durability, and stability of the system. Okay? Now, I observe that in this part of the world, most times we don't look at all these things, especially our colleagues, the architects, just look at aesthetics. They don't look at the stability of the system, functionality, serviceability, and all that.
Some of the buildings we inherited more than 40 years ago, we are still maintaining it. Have that done. At these stages, we are able to generate contract. There are two structures that help us to operate contract in the university. There's the University Tender Board that's chaired by the Pro-Chancellor. And there is the Vice-Chancellor Tender Board that is chaired by the Vice-Chancellor. These two instruments help us to give approval for projects we carry out. We must move to the, in fact, unscheduled visit is better, to find out the state of the contractor so that we don't run into problem or legal. I know there are some legal issues that arise, especially in the faculty buildings, environmental then and management. So if there are emergencies, we can plan for it, but some will come, you have to tackle it so that the school will be on to work, because if you don't react, the system will crash. So we'll try our best. It's a baptism of fire sometimes to serve the public. We know we have bad name, but we'll try our best. Thank you, sir.